Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Limitless Women podcast. I'm Gina, your natural holistic mystic. I'm a transformational coach, certified facilitator of circles, workshop leader, retreat creator, and keynote speaker dedicated to women's empowerment. This podcast is all about letting your light shine and a real space for conversations, raw truths, and bold transformations. We're here to shift the narrative, break barriers, and bridge the gap between women and men, fostering deeper understanding and compassion and unity. Let's dive in. So today's guest, I am very honoured to introduce, is Denise Mortimer. She is a visionary, a transformational hypnosis practitioner, frequency alchemist, the founder of Frequency First Movement, known for her razor-sharp insight, magnetic presence, and her soulful level humor. She helps high-achieving women dissolve subconscious blocks, elevate their frequency, and unlock the most profitable timelines. She guides her clients through quantum travels on their journeys to clear their past and activate future potential. Denise has activated me in many ways. I am definitely can speak to all of those achievements that I've just read out, and she does so much more. So I'm really glad to welcome Denise Mortimer. How are you?
I am phenomenal, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so happy that you brought this amazing podcast to life.
Thank you. So the reason I created this podcast, as I've just said, is to bridge the gap between women and men. But I'm really interested in changing the narrative that we see online, which is always like, seems to be battle of the sexes, men against women. But I think we're all much more powerful than that. And I also think that we all get on a lot better than what the media says. So I'm just going to ask a few questions, and so that I can get more about you, and just let's have a conversation.
Let's go.
Yeah. So the first thing I'd love to know from you is if you can tell me about a pivotal moment in your life that led you to embrace your potential.
Oh, what a great question. Oh God, there's been so many. There's so many points when you're at a crossroad, and in fact, even as I'm saying this out loud, every day we have an opportunity to make pivotal decisions. So I would say like every day. Every day, because from my perspective, we get to repeat the past, or we get to evolve into a new level. So every time we have to make a decision, it's going to either support who we've been, even if we don't want to be that person anymore, or we're going to evolve into a whole new level. There was a number of points that I could raise, but I do feel like every day could be a pivotal moment. How you decide to invest your energy, what decision you're going to make. You're going to turn left or right. I don't mean that politically.
Yeah, let's avoid the politics.
Yeah, I don't mean that politically at all.
Yeah, and it's in working with you, Denise, I really get that. I totally get that, and you've actually helped me to evolve in that way, in the sense of every day is a new day. Every day is a day that you can create something fantastic, and I love that. And I love that, because that kind of leads on to the question I want to ask you, actually, because what do you think how do you integrate that inspiration into your daily life?
I've been so, I want to say blessed, but I think that I've played a role in creating the blessed life that I have. Like who was it who said I want to thank me?
Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg. I remember when he was Snoop Doggy Dogg, and my kids are like, it's Snoop Dogg. I'm like, but he was Snoop Doggy Dogg at one point.
I remember that. I've got an LP that says Snoop
Yeah, I'm
Dogg.
like, he was Snoop Doggy Dogg. So, like I am very blessed, and the integrating into my life every day, I've made it easy because I've created a life that allows me to start my day with a pause. I don't have to leap out of bed. I spent years leaping out of bed at 5 a.m. or sometimes earlier, sometimes a little bit later, driving long ways to go to work. I spent, most of my adult life doing that. But my life is now designed where I wake up and it's it's less often than not that I need to like be somewhere. I get to design my day. So every day I get to make choices. What do I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? What's most important to me today? What fills me up? And using I get to do that. I get to do that. And I think as well, I just want to add that a few years ago, like the online space is a weird and wonderful place. I'm so grateful to have an online business, and it's done me so well, and it's given me a very nice quality of life. The big but here is that at one point I was chasing money so much that I was forgetting to enjoy myself. And I think I've found a balance now where I've done so much work, and then you think, well, I've done all this work, but I'm still on this like treadmill and just going faster and faster and faster and still chasing things that seem to be like escaping me. I want to have those really, really gigantic income months and they're not coming. And I've come to this point where I recognize that real wealth is being able to wake up, and I've got heating on, and I've got, not in the middle of summer, but like at this, right now, I've got the heating on because I can. I'm in my nice warm bed. I can move at a leisurely pace. I don't have to rush to go anywhere. I can start my day thinking what is best for me and how can I be of service today. And that is like wealth for me, that, and I've
Mm.
got clients and I've got money coming in, but there's no pushing, chasing, convincing. It's just a beautiful life. And I think it's taken a few years to get to this point. It's an evolution, repeat or evolve, repeat or evolve. And I
Mm.
repeated a lot of negative patterns for a long time until I evolved to thinking like, actually, the life I'm living now is the life I was once dreaming of, where I could wake up and just make decisions as I want rather than feeling like a slave to a system.
Yeah, yeah. Really sounds like you have, and something I'm really into is gratitude. It sounds like you have a really grateful life. Like you look at your life with such a beautiful perspective, and it gets you to have the most out of it, really, because you can reflect and go back to whatever you were and see how beautiful your life is now, which many people are always chasing, aren't they? They're always chasing something else, but it's like you're in a space where you're still creating, but you are sitting with what the beauty of what you have as well, which is quite inspiring to hear. And I hope the listeners can get some of that for themselves. So having understood all of that and getting to know what inspires you and how you go about your daily life, what do you think, just looking at what I want to say, ask you now. Yeah, I'm going to ask you this. So, what do you think are the misconceptions in the world about women or men that we need to address to bridge the gap in our communication?
Great question. I think there's a lot of uh, old beliefs and old patterns that are starting to dissolve. And I think it's been over the last few years that things are starting to change. But misconceptions that men have to just have kind of this stiff upper lip thing going on, that they can't be in touch with their emotional side, that somehow that makes them weak. And I think that men end up bearing still to this day, there is a change going on, but they're bearing so much of the burden, they're taking so much on. um, a good man wants to take care of his family, wants to do the right things, but may compromise himself and not be able to speak his emotions because it's not the right thing to do. At the other end of it, there's misconceptions about women and their capabilities, what's possible for them. And I don't even want to go into politics, but like just thinking about like the whole state of America at the moment. I'm not even going to go down that I'm not going to go down that road, but I feel like America's being a very disempowering place for women at the moment, especially if you're a childbearing age woman. But I won't go down that road. But I think women are misconceptions of that women are the fairer sex and that they're perhaps capable of less when actually the whole patriarchal system has led us to believe that, but women are supernaturally powerful in
Mm,
ways that men are not supernaturally powerful. And
mm,
I think so the question was about how are we bridging the gap between men and women.
mm,
I think there's an appreciation. Certainly in some communities, there's a deeper appreciation of the magic that women bring, whether you call it supernatural, whether you call it witchcraft, and I don't mean dark witchcraft. I mean, witchcraft is not a bad thing. It's just celebrating that women understand how to use the earth, how to create potions and mixtures and blends, and how to heal and how to nurture and how to love and how to grow. And there's more of a respect for that coming now. There's an evolution where we're appreciating that more. And women are, so I think men are appreciating that about women. And I think women are enabling and allowing men to open up a little
mm.
bit more, recognizing that holding on to unexpressed emotion is never good for anyone. It's going to come out either mentally or physically somehow.
Yeah.
Does that answer the question somehow?
It does. It does. It really does. And it brought to mind what you were saying. And I know we're not going to touch on the politics of things going on in the world, but I almost feel like the extreme views that are coming out are actually bringing people together.
Agree.
Yeah, so I really get what you're saying about, so the more you talk about men being able to open up and seeing women as, and I get what you mean about women as witches, we're healers, and traditionally that what they called healers is what they labeled as witches because they didn't understand the magic
Yes.
women that were creating. So I really love that kind of awareness that that's what's going on, and how that will bridge the gap when we start to accept that we men and women have these wonderful characteristics and abilities, and how we can bring those together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And even
yeah.
even as you're saying that, Gina, I'm thinking like I'm I believe there's a time and a place for pharmaceuticals, but I believe we've been overdosed with them, if you'll pardon the pun.
Mm,
And I think we're moving into a world where men and women are more receptive to the idea of, actually, I know they might not use the term, but they might think, I know a medicine woman. I know
mm,
a woman who can either make me a potion or have the conversation I need to have, or move my body in a way that's going to heal me
mm.
instead
I
of
think
reaching for the pharmaceuticals.
absolutely, and I'm glad that you touched on that, because I think that um, actually in working with you, I recognize that the subconscious blocks and doing that work was a kind of medicine in itself, like a powerful medicine in itself. And as you said, if we don't deal with certain things, they come up physically, emotionally, somewhere in our bodies. So in part, yes, we're not disregarding medical progress, because it's there and it's really good. And if you have an accident, or they do amazing stuff, we're not here to put down that, but we can also now see how much medicine women, and I would call you a bit of a medicine woman, to be honest, because of the work you do in terms of the hypnosis and the deep level subconscious work. um
But hold on there for a second. I would say the same for you. Like, I think we need to look. I think I actually believe every woman is a medicine woman. We
yes.
have we dispense the right medicine for the right people who find our way to us. Like we found a way to be to connect together. because I had some medicine for you, but you have medicine for the people who come to you, and it's not right for everyone. Like what I,
Mm,
you've got to make sure that you're taking the right medicine, and
mm,
it's about tapping in, allowing that feminine wisdom, intuition, and knowing to lead the way rather than thinking, I'll just go down the traditional route and I'll take this drug, or I'll try and mask a symptom rather than deal with the real issue. So ultimately, I think every woman is a medicine woman, dispensing however she can with love and kindness, with nurturing, by cooking good food, by making potions, by helping people move their body, yoga, any kind of things like that, EFT tapping, having conversations. Just sometimes somebody's presence is healing. Just being in their presence, you just
mm.
feel a sense of peace. So I think every woman, and I think I'd love to see that being more celebrated, that every woman is a medicine woman. Because even as I'm saying this out loud, I'm thinking like sometimes you're walking around town, you're seeing like an angry mom. Like I'm thinking of like a mom pushing a, with a pushing a pushchair along. She might be feeling really angry. She might be like swearing under her breath and yelling at her kids. And this is because our culture has disconnected so much. There's no value on like, as I get older. Sorry, I hope I'm not really going too far off topic here.
No, it's fine.
As I get older, when I was a younger woman, I was so busy raising my kids and doing all the things I was supposed to do that the world told me to do. But as I get older and I come into my wise women, my older years, wise woman, I look and I think, oh my God, it's such a huge role to give birth and to raise another human. And you've got people who treat that as if it's that, like it's not a miracle, like it's not a miracle. And so you end up with women trying to raise children on their own, so they
Mm,
can't be fully expressed because they're trying to live in a culture and a society that isn't equipped. It's there to almost make them feel marginalized and incapable, and as a victim of a system. How is
yeah,
anyone supposed to flourish in that?
yeah,
If we were celebrating, if we were like, you know what, this woman is a mother. It comes down to this idea of it takes a village to raise a child,
yeah.
right?
So I love that. I love that. I actually had a conversation this morning where someone said that to me, and I can't believe I've heard the sentence again within within the hour. So it's so true. I love that so much, and it's so we spent so much time for years kind of making the role of motherhood like just a small role. It's just the, you're just at home with the kids, you're
Yeah.
forgetting that these are that what you're doing. It's almost like teachers who get really, in local schools that don't get very much pay, but they're actually, if they're brilliant teachers, they're creating these amazing humans, and we forget about these roles, and that's what mothers are like, and that whole thing about every woman is a medicine woman, it just jumps into all of that and makes it so powerful about who we are and what we need to embody and realize about ourselves actually as individuals. So I really appreciate that. Which actually, I would say, okay, so I was going to ask you about how you navigate your misunderstandings or communication barriers in your relationships. So that could be, I mean, I'm talking about navigating relationships between men and women. So I'd love to know how
Yeah.
you do that. If you don't mind, I mean, you don't have to don't have to go into too much personal detail, but on at least on the surface of it, could you share with us how you do that?
Yeah, that's again a really interesting question, and I don't mind sharing it all. And again, I come to you as like, an elder, an elder of the tribe of humanity. I'm in the I'm in I'm in the last season in this series.
I love that.
It's going to be a long one, but it's the last season in the series. And for years, I didn't understand feminine energy and masculine energy. I didn't understand it. And I grew up with a man. I was raised by a man because my mother died when I was young. So I didn't have that maternal influence. So I grew up seeing a man as a head of the household. So I had a lot of masculine qualities, like get out of my way, I'll do it myself kind of thing. And
Mm,
I was really repelled by the feminine. Like really, I just saw women as weak and pathetic, which is why I didn't have a regard for motherhood. And as I said, my evolution over the years, if you knew me then, you didn't know me at all. Even if you knew me yesterday, you didn't know me at all as we grow and we evolve. But as like in my marriage, I've always been very, um, I can do it myself for many, many, many years. I'm married 27 years and this is my second marriage. Always I could do it myself, I could do it myself. And then as I started studying myself more in the last 10 years, I've become so aware that that masculine energy has well, I haven't allowed myself to be in the feminine flow. So I still have to remind myself at times because I'm conditioned to just get out of my way, I'll do it myself. but but I allow my husband to give me things. I allow him to take care of me. I allow him if he wants to insist on paying for things. I'm like, we've always been quite equal, but I'm just like, I'm gonna allow him to take care of me. I I was so unwilling for many years to allow myself to be taken care of, seeing that as a weakness and seeing men who wanted to take care of women as somehow weak
mm,
without realizing that it's actually an acknowledgement, like the man who takes care of the woman is the man. That's what a man is. Yeah,
yeah,
that he takes care of a woman. So I think as I get older and in this last season, this is
yeah,
going to be the best season yet. It's going to be
yeah.
it's going to be the cliffhanger, but I'm stepping more into allowing myself to receive more and not always have to be the one doing. So I haven't navigated, I haven't been the perfect, like, oh my, let him take care of me and I let him do things, but I'm getting better at allowing that to happen.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's something that many women do need to hear. I think that some of us have become quite defensive because of embodying the masculine quite strongly. I do you this isn't on my
It's
little
okay.
thing,
Go off
but
script.
do you think that um this occurred for you because you found safety within him? How did you do you think that's what happened? And if so, how did that happen for you?
You know, we look we've all got this reticular activating system that's filtering the world for us, right? So I'm filtering for how I need to do, like my past me, younger me was always filtering for how I need to do everything, how I'm the only person I can rely on, how. And over the years, as I've learned more and been like, wow, how do I not allow myself to receive? I'm trying to filter in a different way. So my answer would be that my husband has always been willing to take care of me, but I was unwilling to see that he was willing to take care of me.
Mm,
Like he's just always has been. He's always been, and I was the one who, like, kind of pushed him. It's almost like emasculates men as well to not allow them to do that. And so now I'm much more just allow him to do things. I'm still super competent and maybe still residual stuff from the past, but I feel like I don't need anybody. And don't tend to rely on anyone, but I do actually allow him to give more. And part of me wishes, I don't really have any regrets, but I guess maybe if I could turn back the clock, that I would allow myself to be more in that feminine flow. I might have just it might have been a little bit more fun, because feminine is all about fun and creativity, but allowing yourself to feel safe. And if you don't feel safe in that, and I think like you originally said, I think as I started to choose to feel safe, that, I've been with my husband 27 years. He's not going anywhere. He doesn't, he's not a, he's, he's there. He's always there. He's steadfast.
Mm.
He's solid. That I can choose now that he is, he is what a man is supposed to be.
Yeah. Sounds like you just let go of what you were holding on to, like you were holding on tight to something and you let go and just
Yeah. Yeah.
be.
And part of me is like, how did he even stick around through the worst of
And I think that's the question some of us should ask ourselves, because I guess it takes a certain kind of person to be able to stick around and say, actually, I see beyond this and I'm going to stay. And I
Yes.
see that,
Yeah.
because what might happen with a lot of us is we don't let go. And then when we lose that relationship, we're like, we'll see.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Because but you chose it. You had some sort of reflection in yourself, some growth in yourself, which said, I'm going to allow this to be. You saw the masculine traits you were holding on to so tightly, and you said, actually, this guy is here. He's going to stay. He's taking care of me. I'm going to let him take care of me. I'm going to stop emasculating him. I'm going to be in my flow, my feminine. And I think that's something some of us need to hear, so that we can reflect on whether we're doing that in our own lives. Because sometimes we don't know that we're even doing it. Sometimes we just need to hear
Yeah.
a conversation or observe it in someone else. Many of us will observe a relationship working really well and assume that they were lucky and that we were unlucky, but we don't realize
Yeah.
we're the master. As you said in the beginning, you get up every day and you create every day you create the day that you want. So we can all create this. So I'm glad I asked that question, actually. In fact, that leads on to it's good, what I think would be quite cool is to find out, what does vulnerability mean to you? Because I can see how it seems to, the next part of that was going to be, how has that embraced your journey? But I can see that it's embraced you by letting go. But what does vulnerability actually mean to you?
Do you know, it's that's a really interesting question, because I went on a retreat recently, and it was someone else's retreat, and she said, you don't really allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I'm not sure if that's the truth, because maybe I need to dig a little bit deeper and find out. But to me, vulnerability, like my clients come to me and they're very when they come to me, they open up and they're very vulnerable in the moment when we're having a deep session. And to me, that is like, I'm so honored that people share the depth of what they share with me, because I recognize that not everybody can provide that safe space. I've been in spaces before where, like, I've been in group situations and people, this is a safe space. And I'm like, I don't feel safe. Like, those are just words. Those are just words. But when someone tells you something from the depth of their soul, and they're like, I've never shared this with anyone, or I've never looked at it in that perspective before, that is like a tremendous honor for me. But in terms of vulnerability myself, I feel like, I don't know, it's, I might not answer this the way you might think. I feel like I grew up having to be so strong that I'm not sure I know how to be completely vulnerable.
Mm.
My clients come to me and I can hold that safe space for them, but I don't, because this woman on the retreat said to me, you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I'm thinking, well, what would that mean? What would that look like for me? And I don't really know. And maybe it is a case of just, maybe I do have a barrier around that doesn't allow the depth that maybe someone else would. I don't know. That's such a great question, because I'm not sure that I'm completely. Do you feel like you're completely vulnerable? Not 24/7 with everybody in your life, but do you feel like you're able to be vulnerable?
No, and I find that's why I ask different people this question, because what vulnerability means to someone will be different to another. You know, I share a lot, which might look vulnerable, but on a personal one-to-one, am I vulnerable? Do I give everything? And I wonder whether, in part, I think that we are vulnerable in a sense, because in order to open yourself up to have the kind of relationship that you're having, where you are letting him give to you, where you're allowing yourself to be cared for, where you're allowing him to pay things, that is you being vulnerable. Because to
Mm.
me, prior to that, as you said, you didn't let anyone do anything. You were very self-sufficient.
Mm.
To actually, vulnerability doesn't have to be a really soft, wishy-washy thing. It can just be choosing to allow someone to help you in order
That's
to
such a,
something.
yeah. I love that, Gina. Because I'm thinking, what does vulnerability mean? Does it mean that I have to go, I can't cope? Is that like,
Yeah, yeah,
is that what it means? Or is it just being like willing to allow
yeah.
yourself? That's
And I
interesting.
think in this community of coaching and healing and stuff, we can become quite a little bit arrogant, a little bit judgy in ourselves, because who says what vulnerability actually looks like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because to me, yes, you're quite strong, and you you should be able to have a choice as to how much you share and what you give. And if it's just because it's not at the level of somebody else who's observing you thinks it should be, it doesn't mean to say that you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, because you'd had to be vulnerable in order to welcome your husband the way you have and allow him to do
Yeah.
what you have, because you've just basically demonstrated a level of vulnerability there.
Yeah. And I love that point as well. And it did occur to me that I'm like, because I'm not doing things the way the person thought I should be doing them
Mm,
to be vulnerable, that
mm,
she was assessing me as being, not being
yeah,
open and not being vulnerable. So that's such a great point. And that actually, yeah, yeah,
mm. Because I think I think sometimes we have to think about what, when we're working with somebody and we would like them to go a certain direction with whatever modality we're teaching them, or helping them to awaken to, or however you want to put it. If it doesn't go the way that we want, it doesn't mean that the work isn't happening.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. I'm just, I'm just, I'm just thinking of this video that I think it was like an Instagram reel or something. And it's showing, about a coach who was saying this is the life of a coach, and the coach is like crying their eyes out, and then their phone rings and it says like call from a client, and like, hi, how are you? It just switch from being like a crying mess to like, of course we can speak later. And what I want to say about that is, um, in the online space, there's a lot of people who will use vulnerability as a marketing tool.
Mm,
And I, it's not that I disagree with it, but I agree with using it at a certain place and time. Like, don't use your vulnerability when you're in the middle of a, you're in the thick of like a really nasty whatever, because we're humans having a human experience, and sometimes you're going to be in the middle of a nasty whatever, and that's not the time to be boo-hooing on social. If you have a business, that's not the time to be boo-hooing on social media, because
mm.
I think there's a time and a place, and we share from the scar, not from the wound.
Oh, I love
So
that.
yeah.
Just quickly, I'm making little notes.
Because
not.
if you're in the thick of it, you know you're too exposed, and I also believe, rightly or wrongly, that sharing at the wrong time when you don't have the right support around you is not going to help your healing process, and it can be really damaging to your business as well. And it's not about you being fake or being false, but it's about you being like, the whole world doesn't need to know that you're in the middle of this, you know,
Yeah,
mess that you're in. So when it's done, and when you've moved on, and when you've got the lesson, then you share from the wound,
yeah,
not from the scar, not from the wound.
yeah. That reminds me of something I saw where it says, "Do your something along the lines, do your healing work so you don't bleed all over everyone else, or all over people that didn't cause it."
Yeah, yeah,
Like that.
yes, yeah.
I might have got the word in a bit
I
wrong.
I got I
Yeah,
got I think I know what you're saying about that. Yes, yeah.
yeah. Oh, that's really powerful. And okay, in some ways that's quite cool because it leads on to what I want to ask you next, which is what societal expectations or limiting beliefs have you had to break through to get to where you are today?
I think there's I I've always felt like I personally have always felt like there's pretty much nothing I can't do, but I do recognize that there are things that I probably have held myself back from. But I think the biggest societal things. Oh, okay. Actually, this is actually significant. I used to I used to always believe that men knew the answers, and I guess that's growing up in a patriarchal society. So I had a bit of resistance when I started the workforce, and I'd have like women bosses. I'd be like, women bosses, I need like a man boss. I need a man who knows what to do. And when I started coaching, I was coaching primarily women because it was, you know, it's just, I understood women, I understand them more. And then when men started coming into my world, there was a little voice in my head going, don't they already know better than me? Don't they already know better? So but then speaking, like I've had, you know, many male clients, but I've had probably 95% female clients and just a small percent of male clients, recognizing that I do have a lot to offer them. And it's had to break down my misconception, or Mr. Conception, my misconception that like men know it all. And I didn't even know I had that belief. I didn't even know I had that until I was faced with a woman boss. Could I cope with a woman boss? And then like a male client, could I cope with a male client? So it's patriarchal stuff. It's definitely, well, like ingrained. Being brought up in the USA, you know, I was born in 1964, growing up in a society where, you know, we were just coming out of like the women's liberation era, where you know, 5 minutes before I was born, women were voting, you know,
Mm,
like, you know, it's, you know, when you look at it, it's just been a really small space of time that women have been able to, and I can't even think of the timeline. I think it was like the 1930s or something like that, before in the UK, women could have their own credit cards or name on a mortgage. It was sometime in the like early 1900s. So not a million years ago, you know, that women, so there was a dependency. There was this societal thing, although it was brought up in America. I'm sure that there's a lot of parallels to how Americans were and how British were in terms of, you know, women's rights. And like they shouldn't even be words that go together, like
mm.
women's rights. It's just everyone's rights. It's just everyone's rights.
True, true. It's funny because I saw something yesterday from on a post, and it was about a president somewhere in Europe, could be Italy, or I think it was Italy, who is considering making it so that women's surnames are put first when the child is born.
Right.
People do double barreled and stuff, but you know the standard usually is the father's name goes and then the mum's name is lost.
Yes. Yeah.
trying to change that. And I just thought it was very interesting because when we look at when you look at it scientifically, it's the woman's DNA that carries through each generation, and actually it would make more sense. But the only reason that men's surnames were put instead originally was because women had no right, and they had no rights over their children.
Oh,
So
wow.
their children would be named after the father, and they had no rights to their children, and their fathers could just take the children away. That was it.
Wow. I
That's
didn't
how
know
the
that.
men's names first came about, which I
Oh,
didn't
how
know, because when I see these things, I start going to look at. I just become a little ferret, and I start
yeah,
going into.
yeah,
Start
yeah.
studying history and start looking for. I'm like, oh
How
wow, this is what. And
interesting.
I never even realized that, you know. And then obviously, you know, it's a patriarchal system that we've all kind of been victim to. I don't think it's just women that are victim to the patriarchy. I think it's men too, because of stereotypes and things that have been put upon them that make them have to behave a certain way. And
Yes.
la la la
And
la
it
la.
comes full circle to this idea that you have to be strong and you can't talk about your feelings. So to be a man living under the patriarchal standards, which becomes so deeply ingrained that we don't even, the fish doesn't notice the water
Yes.
until you're faced with a female boss or a male client. Like we don't realize that we've been immersed in this. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's, a downside for men as well, that they end up playing by these rules
Mm,
that have been set by
yeah.
somebody else
Yes.
that we don't challenge, and then we end up with like a toxic and defective society because there's so many people who are not just being true to who they are, because the whole world, like certainly Western cultures, are not designed to enable us to be in our brilliance. And now that I'm in the final season, Denise, the final season,
Love.
like if I could turn back the clock and offer any advice to like younger women, it would just be to, or younger people, give yourself permission to be colorful, be creative, be like, let your light shine through. There's a guy I discovered just recently on TikTok and on Instagram, and he's the most magical creature. He is absolutely magical. He sings, he dances, he plays instruments, he wears wild clothes, he dances naked in nature. He does live shows. He does not sex shows, not like live naked shows. But his creative spirit is just so infectious because he's just him unapologetically. And if you go into the comments on his videos, all of the women are like, I don't know what this is, but I love him. And like everybody who sees him just falls in love with him because he's just so himself. He's not trying to please anybody else. He's not. And you think, when I look at him and then I see how 99.9% of the rest of society operate, he's one of the true originals who's not worried about convention and how things need to be done. He's choosing how things get to be done.
Mm.
And we don't all make that choice. We don't all choose to allow our true brilliance to shine through.
That's amazing. And you know what makes me laugh? I was just going to ask you what advice you'd give someone who felt stuck, and you answered it before I got to say anything, which is fantastic. Because yeah, I really do think we need to give ourselves more permission to just be who we want to be, and it can be scary because you're not used to doing it. But when you do, that's when you're at your most enigmatic. That's when you attract the most wonderful people. And I think that's what's happened in my stories. The more me I've become,
Yeah.
the more I've connected and aligned with things that just are for me.
And Gina, you are such a magical little unicorn as well. Like wherever you go, you got a unicorn. Wherever you
That was
go,
a
you
gift.
You just bring sparkle and magic. So, you know, when you come and you just show up as yourself, you just bring, and that's what connected us. We, you know, we met at an event and I was like, this woman's energy is like you just look like a magical little like woodland fairy the day I met you.
I love that. I really do. I love that. Yeah, I think it's a journey, isn't it, to become you, which sounds crazy because you should already be you, but society has kind of boxed us into lots of places where we think we should be. So often we end up quite far away from our hearts. And so getting back to that is one of the best things. What do you think letting your light shine? What does letting your light shine mean to you, actually?
To me, it's going somewhere and like if there's a piece of music on and I get up and dance and I know it becomes infectious, or there's a bit of banter going on and I know I can get involved and just I'm just a showstopper, like shining my light. I'm a showstopper, and you know this as well. You've been to my live events. I need to have some more of those. But I'm just a show when I'm at my best. I'm just a showstopper. I'm like I make people feel good. I lift the energy. Letting my light shine is just me being me allows other people to be themselves as well. And we laugh and we cry and we dance and we get like rambunctious, like get outrageously like wild.
Yeah, I like that. You being you allows others to be too, because I think that's true. I think when people just sometimes we just try to be something we think we should be all the time. And I think when people find that they can just be, they're around someone who's just like you know, quirky, doing their funny stuff, it allows them to get into that fun. It's like fun is infectious, joy is infectious. When you're sharing joy, when you're being joyful, it's infectious. It's like laughing with your friend, and then they start laughing, and sometimes you don't even know what you're laughing about, but you just all
And you,
start laughing because
and
it's
you laugh even harder because you just can't stop laughing about
and
what you're not sure what you're laughing about.
yeah, I love that. I love that. And one of the things I always ask my guests is to give me their quote, and you did give me a quote, and I just do you remember the quote you said? I think
You know, I can't remember the
here
quote.
it says, "Transformation isn't a process; it's a frequency shift." And I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I do love that as well. And that's such a great point and a great point for your listeners to consider is that we seek solutions outside of ourself and it's never outside of ourself. And when people, I think it's increasingly getting common to hear the term like frequency in terms of who we are as people, like energetically, that we're these frequency based beings. But as people get even more familiar with it, to know that they are they are just a couple of thoughts away from a completely different frequency. And you've experienced working with me firsthand, and you know that when you clear stuff up from the past, you shift frequencies. And I think some people think they've got misconceptions that transformation is a long process. Like if you had a really traumatic childhood, you then have to spend a whole traumatic adulthood reliving it until you can clear it. And actually, transformation happens when you shift your frequency. So, yeah, I stand by that. That's absolutely true. It's not a
100%.
process; it's a frequency. Yeah, and
And I
it happens in a heartbeat.
sorry. Yeah, I totally get that, and I've done so many processes with you where I've shifted frequency, and it's become something kind of innate in me now, and I can be in in what may feel like a low frequency, but it just doesn't last. I know it's going to pass. I know that sounds like, oh, it will pass, and people hear that all the time, but literally, I'll just be like, yep, okay, that's gone. Yeah.
And I think it's not about pretending that things don't affect us either.
Yeah.
But it's knowing that we have the tools to move through them, and and that the more, not even the more tools we have, but the more we can easily recognize, we can choose. And if you want to have a whole day of just feeling sorry for yourself, go right ahead. But you also know that you have the tools to pull yourself out of it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Denise, I can't believe the way that time has flown by.
Oh
And
my God, an hour already. Wow.
I know. And also to know that I have been, I've done a few of these now, and I haven't had one glitch with my talking to you. I usually have a little bit of a jumpy, and I sit here trying to be like, it's okay.
You're doing great. You're doing amazing, and you'll only get better and better and better as well.
Yeah, the frequency has stayed calm. My internet has flowed. I haven't seen you pause in like a freeze. Gonna happen
amazing.
Sometimes. I run
no glitches. No glitches here.
Really grateful. Can you tell people if there's anything that you're doing right now that you want to share with any viewers, and where they can find you?
Well, thank you for that. And people can find me on my website, which is denisemortimer.com. Or they can find me on Facebook, which is Denise Mortimer, and I kind of look like this if you're seeing a visual. Probably my website and my Facebook are probably the main places to find me. I've always got something going on. I recognize that podcasts are timeless, so people might be seeing this in a week, a year, 2 years down the line. So find me on my website or find me through my Facebook, and I look forward to connecting. I've always got something going on, so.
And anybody watching this, I'll put all of Denise's contact details in the bottom, and please don't forget to like, subscribe and follow, and share this with anybody that you think will find it valuable. Denise, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I am just thrilled, very, very thrilled, and honored to have had you here.
Pleasure has been mine. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.